So for the last tutorial, we're going to talk about how to create a report for your database. A report is a way of presenting your information in an organized way, and you can also add additional math and statistics to it, such as averages and sums. Creating the report works almost the exact same way as creating the form. You go to the Create tab. This time you'll select Report Wizard from up here. You can again pick which fields you want to take. I'm just going to take them all and hit Next. The first option here is how you select a grouping. A grouping is a way of categorizing your information by the fields. It's hard to explain without being able to show you, so when we have the report finished, I'll show you. But for now, when you pick a grouping, you should pick a group that will have a lot of options underneath it, such as something like a class name. We'll double click class name, and it will show up blue here because this is what we're grouping by. You never want to pick something like student number because if you don't have a lot of students with the same number, it won't look very nice. So make sure you're picking something that has a lot of topics under it and hit next. Here you would pick what you want to sort your report by. You could pick from the remaining options. I'm going to pick name. You could alternate between ascending and descending here. I'm going to keep ascending and hit next. Again, you can pick whatever layout you like. I'm going to pick stepped because I like it the most. I'd recommend you switch to landscape orientation when you make your reports. All that does is flip it horizontal so that there is more space to work with by default. And we'll hit preview the report so that we can see what the groups actually did. And we'll hit finish. In our print preview here, we can see that our classes were grouped by the class name. So Arth, Bio, and CS, it all has the entries staggered under it because it's grouped by the class names. And then under each of those, it's alphabetized by the name of the student. So we had it grouped by class name and sorted by student name. You'll notice that some of the fields don't have enough space to display, so they're just displaying number signs. In order to fix this, you would have to go to the design view of your report and resize the boxes to make space. So we can either click close print preview here, or right click and hit design view on our report. Since it was our student number that wasn't showing, I'll create some space for the student number, which will fix it so it can properly display. Since the most important thing about reports is to do math, I'm not going to show you all the coloring stuff. We did that already on the form. But there are two different types of statistics that we want you to use for the reports on the assignment. The first type is a statistic underneath each grouping, so that it will do math specifically on the group. So since we grouped by class name, it will do math specifically for each class. In order to do that, we need to create a space for the statistics to go. And in order to do that, we need to click the Group and Sort button at the top here. That brings up this menu. You can see where we have it grouped on class name. We're going to click the arrow here that says More. There's an option here that says Without a Footer section. We're going to switch that to With a Footer section, so that now it added this space underneath each grouping. To put our statistic, we're going to need a text box, which is the first option here. We're going to use this text box because it provides a box and a label. We'll just click on it and click and drag in this space. And we have a text box and a label. Label box. The label is used to show what you are putting in the box. It's just a description of what actually went in the box so we know what you did. If we wanted to have an average as our statistics, we should write something like average in the label so the marker knows where you got the number from. In the box is where we'll put our function that does the math. In our property sheet, if you don't have it open, you just click the button here. You'll see an option here that says data. We'll click on that. The first option says control source. There's some dots over here. We'll click on that. This opens the expression builder. It works much like how we used it for creating our table. We put the math we want to do in here. Access functions work the exact same way as Excel functions do. They always start with an equal sign. Since we used average as our label, we want to use average as our function. It's AVG in access, open parenthesis. Again, field names have to go in square brackets. If you want to be lazy and take a shortcut, you have the expression categories here. You can pick your field names from here. But be careful when you do this that you aren't selecting a label, because the labels are just descriptions that don't actually store any data. You would need to scroll down to the actual fields down here. If I'm doing an average, I need to do a number, or else you can't take an average of words. It won't work. So I'm going to pick the average of the test grade and double click here, and it's just going to put test grade here in square brackets for me. And I just close parenthesis and click OK. This puts the average test grade underneath each grouping, which looks like this. I have my average, and this is the average for Arth 100, this is the average for biology, this is the average for CS, and so on. So that's a statistic under each grouping. We also need to put a statistics at the bottom of the report. To do that, that would go in our report footer. First, we need to create our report footer by clicking on this line that says report footer and dragging down to make space. Make sure when you're doing this, you're not using the page footer because it will not work if you use the page footer. You need to be using the report footer. Just like how we did above, we'll click text box. We'll make a box. This one I'll do a count. You can either keep using the expression builder or just write it straight into the box. I'm just going to write it straight into the box, equal sign, count, open parenthesis. Since count just counts how many are in the grouping or report, it doesn't matter what field I use. So I'm just going to put square bracket. I'm going to pick class name because it's there and I can see it to match it. Remember that it has to match exactly how it's entered into the database. Close the square bracket, close the round bracket, hit enter. Since this is in the report footer, it's going to do a count of the entire database instead of a count of each of the groupings. And to see that, I would just go back to here, scroll all the way down, and I have my count box here. There were 38 things in the database, so it's counting to 38. So remember, for the assignment, you need to have statistics in the footer for your fields, which will do math specifically on the entries in the groupings. And you need to have a stat at the very bottom for your report footer. That is everything you should need to know about Access to do most of the assignment. Good luck and have a good week.